we're turning to the interesting topic of angel investing. And for those of you who are less familiar with it, this is about women who use their spare wealth, not the house, the mortgage, the pensions, or the kids' school fees, but use their spare wealth to back entrepreneurs. And they're using their own money directly, making their own decisions. But they also bring their experience, their insights, their expertise, and generally their passion for entrepreneurship. And that's what we call business angels. We have many of them all around the world. And here in the UK, our research has shown us that we actually have 37,000 business angels across the UK. But we only have 14%, 5,000 in the UK, of those angels are women. And this is something that really troubles us. And why does it trouble us? It's because women back women. Women actually want to help other women entrepreneurs to build and grow their businesses. And it's a wonderful opportunity for women to be able to use not only, as I said, their spare wealth, but all of that business expertise, passion, interest in supporting the economy, interest in innovation, new ideas, and generally wanting to put something back. So that's really why we're here today. Because we know that there are many, many women with the right background and spare cash in banks. And yet we know that this is also often a very difficult thing for women to know about. It's not widely understood. The channels are not always open to many women. And so we know there's a huge role for women in banking and finance to help those women take on that opportunity of becoming a business angel. And more importantly, because I said women back women, it's a huge opportunity for you to also help the women as entrepreneurs that you may also have as your clients and customers to be able to access that important pool of finance. So as I said, it's really a win-win situation on both sides. And I'm delighted today to have three wonderful panelists who we're going to kind of talk about this issue. And just to really, help you understand more what role you might take and some of the actions you can take to really support this really important area. And it's absolutely all over the world. I've met angels from all over the world, and I know my colleagues have too. And so we know this is something that all of you can consider. So I'm going to start actually with my wonderful colleague, DEEPALI, who you've already heard about. And DEEPALI is not only a partner at SpeedInvest. DEEPALI was a UK BAA Angel of the Year. And that's absolutely a really, really important accolade. And that's because DEEPALI has been backing many women with her own money and her own time for some time now, actually, DEEPALI, even though you've then stepped into the world of becoming a venture capitalist at SpeedInvest, which is wonderful. So really, just to give everyone a flavor of this, would you really tell people a little bit about what Business Angel has been for you, how you got into it, and maybe a few of the some of the women that you've backed as well, but really so people can really understand the power of this.
Thank you, Jenny. That's a really long story because I'm quite old now, but I'll start in any case. I started my career in investment banking and moved on to the private equity side. So I always had a very financially driven career. Went to work at Marsh and Aon. I had often had girlfriends who would come up to me and be like, "Can you look at my business plan?" And that's how I really got interested in really supporting women. When I left the city, it was about 10 years ago now, I started working with female founders, really to help them on their business plans. It was all pro bono when I first started. And at that point, there were not that many women building large, scalable tech companies like there are today in deep tech and climate and health and fintech. So I started that way. Some of them would give me equity in return. for the help that I gave them. I started writing very small angel checks. I think my first was Live Better with, Tamra. My second investment was Pension B, which went public on the London Stock Exchange. So that is a definitely phenomenal success story. Till one day, Atomico picked me up. Atomico is a large venture capital fund, and I was having coffee with someone there, and she was like, have you ever heard about the Atomico Angel Program? And I was like, never. And she was like, we give about 100K to people every year to invest in whatever you choose. And I was like, sure, I'd love to get involved. I didn't hear from her for 6 months. 6 months later, I got an email saying, hey, you have 100K, would you like it to invest? And I was like, absolutely. So they gave me money for 3 years, and I built up a portfolio of 30 women that I invested in across climate, health, fintech. And that was the journey. I, of course, along the way, set up a community called Alma Angels, which is UK's largest community in support of female founders. Ended up at SpeedInvest, strangely, made a lot of connections, to be honest, in the venture capital industry. And you have product market fit when a VC calls you and says, show me your portfolio of women that you're investing in, because we want to know what your investments look like. Joined SpeedInvest as a venture partner, again, to lead gender lens investing for the firm, which is what I do now. And now I'm a full-time partner of the fund doing that.
That's maybe a fantastic story.
Yeah.
Maybe just to give a little flavour, any sort of stories, I know you've mentioned one or two, but maybe just some of the relationship you have also and how you work together as an angel founder.
Obviously, I'm not allowed to do angel checks currently anymore because of the conflict situation, but I still meet many women, very early stage. Even as a fund, we do very early stage investing. I think I've had many success cases. Of course, venture is a long game. I think other than a company that went public, female founder, and she's building and now launching in the US, which is phenomenal, which was Pension B. I have Shellworks, which is raised 5 million seed from Local Globe. I think MARLA is in there as well. I have SideQuest, which raised a very large Series A from Google Ventures. I have I'm just trying to think, like so many stories to tell. Vayu, which is a carbon tracking platform, actually a female founder in Berlin, of Indian origin. She raised, I think, a 12 million seed round from Atomico. So really phenomenal women building big, profitable, impactful companies, because you often find women are building to change things, which is what I like to invest in. And so many stories, of course. Ultimately, I've had a chance to exit some of them, and I've had an opportunity as they raise further rounds, but I haven't really sold out of anything. I still own 50% of what I have in Pension B. I think I sold 50%.
It's a fantastic story, but also you can see it's actually very fun too.
Yeah.
It's actually very fun.
Yeah, it is. Very close to the women I invest in, obviously. You act almost as a, spiritual advisor, financial advisor. We talk about some of them are, raising children while building. Romy had, I think she has 4 children now. She had 3 children while building a company and taking it public, and often got asked at fundraising meetings, how can you have a family and also build a big company? So, which we talk about all the time, helping them, prepare for lots of different things. But it's really, you almost become like really good friends.
Yes.
But I've learned a lot about investing because I've seen thousands and thousands of companies, which has now, made my job as a venture capitalist much easier, obviously.
And that's the thing as well. You learn all the time, don't you? And you constantly come across new ideas and innovations, and you're part of those innovations and the growth of those and the success, which is wonderful. One of the other parts about angel investing, and we would say this, is you don't do it on your own. It's actually so much a thing not to do on your own. It's very much a collective thing, and working alongside other women. And it's one of the ways, a huge pathway for women to do this as well, is to become part of an angel group. At UKBA, we are the trade body for UK angel investing. We have 106 angel groups right across the UK. But only a few of them are still focused on women and women only. DEEPALI's already mentioned Alma Angels, and MARLA, who is here, has set up a fantastic syndicate called HERmesa, which again has 100% focus on backing women. So we are looking to kind of build many more of those. It's a fantastic opportunity. But Marla, could you say a little bit more about syndication, what it means, how you function, and why this is a great pathway for women to start investing?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the first thing, I just want to talk about why it matters that women invest, right? And
Absolutely.
Do women invest differently than men? And all of these implied gender tropes. Okay, so the first thing is women invest the exact same way as men. Okay, like we look for product market fit. We look how efficient you are with your capital. We look how well you can understand go to market. We are here to make money. And I think the first thing that I want to say is that all the women who come to HERmesa to join our syndicate, oh, hello, Yvonne, all the women who come, we're here to make money. But what we do with our money matters. And what matters is having a seat at the table. So mesa means table in Spanish. It's about giving women a seat at the table to say what they want to do and what future they want to see. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of taking a seat at the table, because if not, the world is what it is today, which is it is being built, it is being selected, funded, and built by white men, mostly named Steve, who live in the southeast of England and work in the city, right? And so if that's the future that you want, then do not invest. But if you want to change the future, money votes, capital moves. And that's why I started to angel invest, and that's why I set up a syndicate, because there's power in collective action, but more than power, there's knowledge. And again, I'm here to make money, but I only know a little bit about the world. I love the world. I love learning. I think that's like the characteristic of being an angel. One day I learn. I did not pass high school chemistry. I have invested in 2 chemistry businesses, deep science, because I invest with PhDs in chemistry. I invest in, when we invested in Shellworks, that was a biomaterial startup. Also didn't pass biology or whatever biomaterials is. But the reason we have a syndicate is because we think that you are best served to pick winners by investing with people who know what they're doing. They understand the market, they understand the industry, they understand the dynamics. This is a very personal thing. I've worked in a number of startups before I became a full-time investor. I know exactly what it's like when you don't understand the dynamics and who the buyer is. And we also invest alongside very experienced angels who will say, yes, this might make sense as a business, but it doesn't make sense as an angel investment and a return on capital. So the syndicate that HERmesa is, and all syndicates and communities, are people who get together to share that knowledge and hopefully pick winners.
Thank you. I mean, that's, it's really helpful. Just you understand then it's the power of that mix of knowledge and skills that helps you also pick the right businesses, but also it's that kind of, it's not just the sharing of knowledge, is it, Marla? It's also sharing your capital. So maybe you could say a little bit more, because often there's an assumption you have to be super rich or using huge amounts of your money to be part of this.
Everything, the collective is powerful, and the collective is powerful in terms of sharing money, but it's also in terms of sharing checks. I remember, DEEPALI, I'm sure you don't remember, but when I was thinking about all of this, I went and got DEEPALI's advice, and I said, DEEPALI, I think the way we can get women to start investing is with really small checks, 2,000 pounds. And DEEPALI goes, well, yeah, but nobody's going to take 10 2,000-pound checks on the cap table and on their investment, list of investors. How are you going to do that? And I was like such an entrepreneur. I'm like, I don't know. And thank God, a week before the UK shut down with COVID, I met my business partner, who at the time was CFO of a venture fund, and she said, we'll let you use the venture fund's back office. And that was how we did it. So we invest at HERmesa. Everything is collective. And again, different syndicates work different ways. But not only is it good for investors, but it's good for founders to have one line that says the HERmesa Angel Syndicate. And in that line, I might have 25 or 30 investors. I think the biggest deal we've done is maybe 35 people investing in the same company, but it's just one line, and we're able to then have very small checks. So we have a minimum check size of 2,000, but people obviously will put in 50,000 as well. It just depends on your wealth. I think it's a very interesting question about what's the right entry level. So I had a theory, like any good entrepreneur. I'm like, we're going to start with this low check size, and then people will write bigger and bigger checks as they become more and more comfortable. And that has not been the case in our community. What that low check size did was allow us to attract an entirely new class of angels, women who are in their late 20s even, who are, and mainly entrepreneurs. So we're a very unusual group of investors in Europe. We are women entrepreneurs who write checks. And so we've built companies, we've raised money. We have a few people now with really big exits, so now they can write, although they are starting small and learning. But most people, your angel check size is a function of your wealth. So for very, very wealthy women, it's just not worth it to do all that work for a 2,000 pound check. They'll start with 20,000. That's the same as, maybe 2,000 to me. But by keeping that number low, you change the complexion, literally the complexion of who is an angel investor. You get more women at that table. The table doesn't become Stephanies from the Southeast who work in the city. You get people from all over the world. HERmesa's community comes from 50 different countries. We were stuck at 49 forever, but we got a new member who grew up in Myanmar. I was like, yes. So we're from 50 different countries. We're 30% non-white. And we're women-led, but not women only. So we're about 85% women, and over 50% of our women are entrepreneurs. And I think that really has been linked to the low ticket size and the sort of come as you are, share what you know.
Yes, thanks very much. So by the way, just to say, it isn't just about enabling other people. You can be it too. £2,000, that's all you need. Same price a handbag, or the weekend away. I always have to say this because it just puts it in a bit of proportion. So, Michelle, I'm not asking you to part with your handbag or whatever at the moment, but
my
just to...
wouldn't stand up muster against £2,000.
But, in the role you have at HSBC and very much looking after that kind of private banking side, clearly you're meeting a lot of women of wealth and clients in the bank who obviously you work with and help them to use their money in one way or another. Can you say a little bit about your approach and kind of what is the kind of help you do give women to think how to deploy their finance, their spare wealth, and also their experience?
Yeah, absolutely. In private banking, we kind of look at two facets when we advise clients. There's obviously the financial investment side, but we do and increasingly more spend time helping clients have the impact they want to with their wealth, the life they want and the impact they want to. And there was a recent UBS report where they interviewed wealthy women. 70% of them said they want to make a change in the world. 9 out of 10 of them said that they saw money as a catalyst for change. So there's a realization that there's power in this. And I guess we look at 3 ways of helping our clients. One is ESG investing. So that's obviously been, a big boom really over the last decade. Another is philanthropy. And the third, which is perhaps the most exciting for this conversation, is an increasing focus on what we call next chapter. So what does a client want to do once they've made their money, particularly entrepreneurs? And it falls somewhere between that core investing and philanthropy. But perhaps if I take all 3 of those just quickly in turn. On the ESG side, there's another report out there by RBC recently, and we had a bit of a chat about this in the breakout room beforehand. But it says that they found that more than double the number of women than men rate ESG investing as extremely important for their investment strategy. So whilst we don't want to make assumptions, that there are data points that ESG is very important. So we spend a lot of time, across our entire client set on ESG, looking at the different ways clients want to invest, whether it's just looking for companies with good ESG practices, whether it's thematically, whether it's real impact-led, with a real purpose and outcome they want to achieve. And we work very closely with our asset management arm, who's got a long history back to 2001, looking at bringing social investment opportunities with a social cause behind it. They just recently made an investment in an organisation, I'll get the name right, Radiant ESG Global Investors, which is a women-led asset management investment recently, really looking at this sort of impact-led end of the scale. So we do a lot in the ESG space. On the philanthropy side, we also ran one of our own reports last year, which is an entrepreneurial wealth report we run globally. And 40% of, a third of our female entrepreneurs said that they want to give money to charity or philanthropic causes. That compared to 24% for men. So there's a little bit of a bias there as well. Again, we've got a long history in helping clients with their philanthropic needs, whether it's setting up charitable foundations or organisations, helping think through the causes, the structure. We don't advise particular charities, but we create the environment and the structures that allow them to deploy their money. And then the third area, which is perhaps really most interesting for this space, is increasing focus we have on what we call next chapter. So when we asked entrepreneurs in this recent survey what they want to do after they've sold a business, 40% of women want to stay involved in business. So 14% said angel investing directly. Similar amounts said they wanted to be mentors or NEDs. So there's a real demand to stay invested and involved. And we're increasingly looking at ways that we can facilitate that. We have done some partnerships with organisations like Albright that bring together collectives of women in business, and they have a pitch day that we've been involved in a number of times, bringing some of our clients to pitch days of female entrepreneurs and an opportunity for them to talk to investors directly and potentially attract assets. But what's very exciting about this conversation really is we're hearing about HERmesa and Alma Angels, is the other formats that are out there that give us an opportunity to introduce in the right way as a bank this opportunity to stay invested. It's between philanthropy and core investing. It's not big enough to be core investing. It's not. It's just not handing a check over it necessarily entirely. It's look at, as a philanthropic charitable exercise. It's about making money, but in a structure that has purpose.
And kind of just following on from there now, Michelle, do you see? And again, this is, for everyone who's working with women in one way or another, are there kind of inbuilt barriers or issues or the operating procedures or regulations or whatever that currently prevent you from just saying, you know what, you should become a business angel and I can sort of tell you how to do that or point you in the right direction? Because, you've taken us kind of like, we can see some chinks there where you could be doing this, but what would stop you at the moment, or what do you feel are the issues?
Absolutely, and these are not obviously clearly not sort of gender specific, but as a bank we live in a regulated world, and our responsibility to our clients is that we have fully due diligenced any investment opportunities we put in front of them, and that they align with the risk profile and needs of the client. And that's something that all banks or financially regulated institutions have to follow. And by their very nature, most organisations seeking angel investing, regardless of who the founder is, by their very nature tend to be small. They don't tend to have the quantitative track record that you would need to do a proper due diligence that would stand up to a regulator. Yeah. So by its very nature, we don't advise angel investing opportunities directly. But that is a space that we increasingly see clients interested in. We've written reports recently talking from a thought leadership point of view around angel investing, but we can never go as far as saying, and here's some direct opportunities, because it leaves us quite exposed. So finding a way to kind of bring these two means together in a way that doesn't leave banks exposed to regulation or sort of financial recompense is really about finding these professional structures that allow you to take client needs and introduce them to a number of different professional structures that allow them to explore their opportunities. And that's why I'm really excited about the idea of syndicates or communities. We're talking very much today about women-led businesses. There are other causes that various people may look to as well. But bringing a panel of those opportunities together that we can facilitate, clients are telling us they have this need, to give back, is a real opportunity, I think, that's very much unexplored in the banking world.
So, DEEPALI, you've seen, following on from Michelle's points there, and obviously, there's obviously still some barriers there that you can't just do this so directly, but you've been looking at this all around the world. I mean, you've been investing in many places, visited lots of different communities. What's your sense of what you feel banks could be kind of doing more of, or how to improve?
I mean, I think firstly, women, to be honest, just taking a step back, should be thinking about money and how to make money, Absolutely. Right? Which women don't. I don't know how many of you here would love a show of hands actually invest, whether it's the public markets or, women don't naturally. It's always like the husband or the partner of the household who is looking at money rather than women, right? So that's the first barrier. Even before you wanting to advise the client, you have to educate yourself on it, right? Last night, my husband and I went for a walk. Interestingly, he loves investing in the public markets. He's looking at a tequila mezcal brand in America, right? And
in public markets. Yes.
And I said to him, "Have you looked at the cohort data?" And he was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "You have to look at their sales. How many? Of course, it's about how many stores they are selling at, but how are those people buying again? Are those stores coming back, or is they having to sign up new stores? And what's the customer?" So, and this morning I asked him, "Should I be looking at investing in wine, and how is wine done over the last few years," right? And then we opened up the wine index. We looked at wine 500, wine 1,000, and we were like, "Oh, it's 12% over 5 years, so it's really not that great," right? But how many people actually, women are actually thinking about making money? It's super important that if we have money, we can either just lies around, but it needs to multiply, right? So
that's also thing. Where you put
the money, right? So first is, and coming back to your point, is how can we advise our clients, is first we have to educate ourselves. And I think beyond the client, the bank has like a huge population. Banks have huge populations of working, successful women, right? And whether it's offering them learning through, an employee benefit, which is learn about investing, whether it's Female Invest, a tech platform that does it, or is freelancers who do it. But I think that's the first step. Perhaps, in my view. I also have been to many corporates to talk about angel investing, right? I was recently at Blackstone. Blackstone's a private equity, large asset manager, and it was their internal women who wanted to learn about angel investing, right? So there's some of that. Ultimately, I think there's pools of women who are just waiting to be, I think it's the biggest asset class, in my view, on the female founder side and on the wealth side, waiting to be tapped. And I see women now investing in Kenya. I just was in Kenya 2 weeks ago. I met the head of the Nairobi Business Angel Association. I know women in the GCC who are setting up angel communities because they want to invest. So some of it is, I think the bank has to take this upon, corporates have to take this upon themselves and be like, we want to educate our population of women. And I know it's not about education and mentoring, but women don't like to talk about money, and that has to change.
That's a very important point you made as well, about kind of how women find out about investing and understand how to do it effectively. And I think we've often had those barriers of women not being able to access that knowledge and education. And Marla, just flipping over to you now, I know that, as a syndicate, clearly you're doing a lot of mentoring and supporting, but what's your thoughts about how we can get more of that education out there?
I think education needs to be a very broad word. So when I hear the word education, and I think a lot of women, and again, I don't want to speak for any other woman in the room, but I was a good girl. I did my homework. I was always, I have my notes here, so I make sure I hit all the points, right? So when women sometimes hear the word education, they think, oh, I need a course. Yeah. I need a course. And so I always tell this story that when I was becoming an angel, which I had worked, just as a side note on myself, I'd worked on Wall Street. I'd worked for big companies whose business models were being destroyed by the internet. And then I worked for smart companies that tried to continue to destroy. So I worked for nearly 20 years in the media tech space. And I was like, oh, and I was also mentoring startups. And my husband said to me, why don't you be an angel investor? I was like, well, I couldn't possibly. I wouldn't know where to start. Like, I had just had a commercial for 3 different startups from pre-seed to Series A. Like, theoretically, I knew something. At least I knew what not to do, right? And so I got into angel investing because I had a male friend who was doing it. And he took me to his syndicate, the Green Angel Syndicate, which is a lovely group of people who, in first group here in the UK, investing solely in climate. And I got really excited. So I started to, naturally curious, ask men and women, how did you start? And women, oh, I took a course, then I took another course, and then men, how did you start? I wrote a check. I just did it. And so that really was very, very formative in me thinking about how HERmesa, the world of women as investors could change. So I think education, I actually am pretty negative on the idea of a course, although my colleague is like, Marla, some people do like to learn by learning. I'm like, well. So I like to think of education much more broadly, which is, first of all, let's talk about our investments. I think DEEPALI's point is excellent, that we have to educate ourselves to invest, but we should also talk about what we invest in. And when you angel invest, it's super fun, because we actually had to sign for one deal, an NDA, and we only share a little bit with the investors because everyone wants to go down the pub and talk about this particular deal, but it was all patent protected tech and stuff. But it's good fun. So you should always, you can't be what you can't see, right? So if you are an angel investor, you should talk about it. One of HERmesa's investments is in Skåli, a ethical cider brand out of South Africa. For 2 years, I walked around with Skåli in my handbag. Finally, they're big enough, but I would take it to everyone. It's really fun. So education starts with highlighting women who are angels, women themselves highlighting it. At HERmesa, I'm going to be super technical here. We do a lot of content marketing. So I think that's something that banks can do. You can highlight women entrepreneurs. You can highlight women investors. We highlight, whenever we close a deal, the lead investor and the founder, and why that angel was the expert and why we invested in the founder. So a lot of content marketing is a great way to start educating. The next thing is, again, I'm not a big one for courses. There are some fantastic courses, and I appreciate a framework and an introduction is valuable. But the education should then come from a structured approach to investing and learning by doing. And you can certainly get that by joining a syndicate, but you can equally get that by watching 30 pitches on CrowdCube and reading the information. You can go to pitch events. I really myself got very interested because I was at a startup that was, it was too early for Europe, Western Europe, and then it was too late. There was only, I think, 20 minutes when we were probably right for the market. And then the market had moved beyond, and so we were selling into sub-Saharan Africa. And I started to go to these African startup pitch events. This is about 12, 15 years ago, when Africa was more headed in London. Now it's more on continent. And oh my God, just going to pitch after pitch after pitch and hearing people and then talking to people next to you. So I think education comes in a lot of forms. But for me, it's about building if banks want to play a role, if organizations really want to drive, it's about creating education through knowledge and then creating a very structured funnel that turns awareness into action. Simply showing people is a necessary first step, but it's not enough to drive change. You need to make sure there are clear steps, there are clear pathways, whether it's, do I think everyone should join HERmesa? I mean, yeah, but there are plenty of amazing groups out there, including women here in the room who I know. There are fantastic many pathways, but I think you have to point people to those pathways. Otherwise, you walk out of the room all excited and nobody writes a check. And you're not an angel investor until you write a check, and you're not a good angel investor until you write a lot of checks.
Yeah, and to be honest, you can start your own club. I mean, that's
exactly. Yeah.
We were like, oh, this is a problem I need to fix, and let's just get together and fix it. And we had, I remember the first iteration was Alma was 5 women.
We were 5
and
people
4 guys in a room trying to solve for this problem, and now it's 400, right?
It's a great, but it's totally, it is really often possible. You just do it with a group of like-minded people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of it starts with the same values. Obviously, you want to back women, but you could be wanting to focus on climate change, on healthcare, or anything that you want. But I think what we are keen on is that we have a kind of that mixed level of experience. So you've got women who are new to it, working with women who know how to do it. You know, that's the wonder of the syndicate approach of learning by doing. Actually, here in the UK, the regulatory framework says that if you're high net worth, you can start angel investing, or if you've had experience in advising companies or being part of financial services, you can also start investing. But if you haven't done any of those things, you can join an angel group for 6 months and be part of learning how to do it before you start investing. So there is a regulatory framework, which is not the same as you would have with venture capital, but it is there to protect and support that. I've got really one final question before we open up to the audience, because we've got people in the room here who are not just from banking, but also people who I believe are from the kind of international donors, or you may be working with a number of these kind of organizations in your own countries and thinking, well, how can we, you know, create and support this ecosystem? And I was really thinking if any of you had some thoughts on this, because one of the things that I think we're all very aware of is, and it's something you're all doing, which is the power of how you leverage that investment power of women by using funds and co-investment funds. And DEEPALI, obviously, as being part of a VC as well, can you just say a little bit more about how you think this could be considered more in countries where they feel there are fewer pathways for those women?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the government, Jenny, plays a huge role, as you know,
Absolutely.
right? And we can't, whether it was America's first mission to the moon, or whether it was Google's first search engine, or whether it was the first Tesla car in America, it was all government funded. And we actually don't know that, and we don't see it because they're all big private companies now. But so you can't really ignore here, which is why, you know, we do things like the task force, because we're trying to change things here. We have tax incentives in the UK. We changed the angel game, right? The SCIS, EIS. How many people, when we did those surveys, you know, in the regions with Zandram, or how many women actually know about SCIS and EIS, or how many people actually know about these tax incentives that you get when you're investing in angel, you know, startups. So I think the government plays a very key role in taxes, in match funding. You know, if you're investing in a female-founded business, can it be matched through grants, et cetera, from the government? I know that, you know, the IFC is doing this, where they're investing in first-time, or KfW in Germany, where they're investing in first-time funds, which are essentially created by women to invest in women. Those funds are small funds. They're essentially writing angel checks, right? But being funded by government money, or acting as a first loss layer. So any losses would first be eaten by the government before they would hit private investors. And we cannot forget, we actually don't realize how much the government can influence in mobilizing private capital just by putting in some money, right? So, so obviously, I think the government is very key. Secondly, obviously, philanthropy is very, very key. Although I would never say that you want, you know, but you have big American foundations. You know, if you look at even the venture capital funds in America, many of them are funded by endowments or foundations, right? So, because again, you can make money here. It's not like you're giving a donation, but there are families now who think beyond just making money, but the impact that money is having, and you'll have a lot of those clients, right? A lot of clients are thinking, how do I create intergenerational impact, not just intergenerational wealth? So
Yes.
I think having philanthropy here can also play a key role in investing in women, unlocking some capital there is also very useful.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And obviously, again, Michelle, at HSBC, you've been doing a huge amount for kind of women entrepreneurship on the one hand, but, you know, these are real opportunities then to kind of think, how do you mobilize and leverage the power of, to be honest, huge untapped power of women of wealth.
Absolutely, and I've learned a lot from this panel myself, and I think education is, you know, education in its various forms is something, particularly as we start thinking about helping people, the impact they have is something that the banks can definitely play a role in. I also think it's, I know we're talking about women investing in women very much here, but I also think it's important to educate people a little bit more as well about good investment opportunities, full stop. So, you know, we've provided quite a bit of thought leadership out in the market on angel investing, but also talking to people about the inherent biases they may have. People like to invest in somebody who looks like them, or, you know, they've got some kind of resonance, some kind of feeling, particularly at this early stage when there's not many data proof points to go on, perhaps. And I think there's an opportunity to really talk more to people about all of our clients about leaving more of those biases at the door to invest for money, not 100% invest for purpose. Like it's so that you open up that full investment opportunity into women-led businesses that are incredibly successful in their own right. So I think there's the education on that side as well.
Thanks very much. No, that's very helpful. I'm just going to open it up to the audience now, see if any of you've got any comments. We'd love to hear from you.
It's a question.
Yes, of course.
Thank you. It's a question, and it's a two-pronged question. One for those that are promoting angel networks. How are you making decisions about what to invest in, and how are you dealing with the issue that this is a very long-term sort of investment? How do you keep your members updated, and how do they get a sense that okay, this is working? And then on the other side, women that want to sort of be part of an angel network, is there anything such as a good one or a bad one? Like, where do they go? How do they decide? Should they just go on the internet and just type angel networks? No, and then just thumbs up and do it? Like, how do they do that? So the practical way sort of getting involved. And sorry, bonus question. Are you dealing with providing access to global opportunities? Not from an investment perspective, because I think that is more or less sorted. Like, there's a pathway to getting money, say, international money to go into African tech. But for, say, African women that now want to invest, can they get access to the Googles of this world or to, say, a new biotech company? I think this is a big deal, what you're doing, because we've always tried to tell women it's not about saving, it's about investing. Until we invest, we can't make money. We can't be wealthy. So just like to hear your views. Thanks.
Marla, did you want to make
There's so many good questions. I think we should chat at the end.
We have to keep it brief. On a few questions. Yeah.
So, okay, let me try to answer the questions. It is a long-term play. It's 7-10 years. So we always write a deal memo for every deal. Not every angel group does, but we do. And at the end, we say, what is the exit potential? Obviously, it depends a little bit on public market multiples, but what's the potential? Who's going to buy the company as it looks today, and how long is that going to take? So we're very, very clear to our investors that this is at least, it's 7+ years. Or actually, we think there's 3 years. I've already had an offer, 2 offers, and this is what they're going to build to. And so we're very, very clear. But we're super clear to people. This is money that is a long-term play, and therefore it needs to have a really high return over the period. How do we keep people informed? The good founders will send you monthly or quarterly updates. Obviously, once they get bigger and bigger, they get smaller and smaller, the updates.
I don't know about that. Just pick up the phone and call them.
So, and then the third thing I think that we could speak, so anyway, it's really about how, okay, so sorry, I think it's about how well structured the angel group is and how much and how transparent they are. There's also different groups for different people. I guess this is my last point. There's lots of universities in the world. You all could get a degree, but people choose one versus the other because they like the fit, they like the people, they like the atmosphere. And I think what's lovely about angel investing, and what I would like, is to have like so many women's groups that you could find the one that fits you best, or the top 3 that you like the most. So it's really about fit and community. And our community tends to be quite entrepreneurial, but other communities tend to be more city people. That's totally fine. Some communities, most of our investors also are immigrants. Others are more British. It's just whatever makes you happy, Just find some lovely people to chat about deals with. And we're very happy to also talk about how we do have a number of South African ladies, and then we kind of are accessing some of that capital already. So we're really keen to build this sort of, this global network. Yeah,
I would just add that, is that okay, Jenny? I would add that obviously, over time, you will see the track record, right? Just like I'm in a venture fund, and when I go out and raise money, I have to be able to show the deals that I've invested in and what the return is, right? So any good angel network should be able to, you should see the deal flow. That is the most important. How are these deals getting to them? Because it is a long journey, but over time, you have to be able to show that you're investing in good deals that are making you money, right? And you should also assume, when I used to write an angel check, I used to assume I'm never going to see this money again. because it's a very high-risk asset class. So you have to mentally adjust that this is not money that you have for your retirement, right? This is money that you're like using for a handbag and you can use for an angel check.
There's so much more we can say.
Yeah, there's so much.
We're very happy to kind of send some links and resources afterwards as well. I think there's another question there.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much. Very, very educating session that we have. So my name is Biodun, and I head Women Banking in Access Bank. And this you're talking about is actually very, very interesting, investing even in women entrepreneurs. So my question is, how do you balance it, both from the demand side and the supply side? Because I know that the women entrepreneurs are also looking to get maybe this investment in their businesses discounted, or some sort of good enough for them, better than what they'll probably get in other forms of investment. And then as an investor, as an angel, what's your incentive for putting the money in there if it's so much of high risk, like you said, and you're not investing for fun? Exactly, because you're actually trying to also build your maybe wealth or some stuff, So how do you balance it both from the demand and the supply side?
I mean, I'm not quite sure I understand the first bit of the question, but the second bit is you usually get an equity stake in the business, right? So the business is valued at a certain amount, so like 5 million or 2 million or whatever, and if you put in a 20K check, you might get a 10% stake or a 1% stake. So that is your ownership in the business. Over time, you're hoping that the business does better and better, and they will raise more and more money. Each time they raise money, they're going to ask you, hey, do you want to invest? If there's space. If the business does too well, sometimes there's not even space for the early angels to come in, unless you have a very close relationship with the founder, and maybe then they can sneak you in. But over time, they raise more and more money, and your ownership stake starts going down, but you own a small percentage of a bigger company. And ultimately, this business will get sold. Many will get sold. Actually, many will die, some will get sold, and 1 or 2 might go public. So that is the other thing about angel investing, is you can't do 1 check or 2 checks. You need to start over time, build a portfolio approach, because many of them are such early high-risk businesses, many will die. That's how it works. It's the law of large numbers in some way.
All right.
And the power law.
Yeah, I think that answers both for me.
Yeah,
thank you.
I think we've just got a chance for a very quick last question. I wasn't quite sure if we've got someone already with the mic. Yes, sorry about this.
I do have the mic.
So much to answer.
How, I just went on HERmesa right now, and the first thing you see is the FCA regulation. So how it's written, like, if you're not a high ultra net worth, right, you can't invest. Okay. So if you want to reach for something else. So how can you then encourage people who want to enter not to read incorrectly what they see?
What is high net worth? Right, so the regulatory environment in which angel investing happens in the UK, and it varies all over the world, in my experience. And in fact, we probably have a tighter regulatory system in the UK than probably anywhere on this. We've carved out an area of investing which allows angel groups to operate relatively informally, but by having rules about the knowledge and capacity to invest of the individuals. A high net worth person is designated in this country, and we've just had a huge debacle about this, so we know what we've been trying to achieve.
And the law, by the way.
So it's done by law and a regulatory environment, but which dictates how much women need to be considered. And one of them is, which we've managed to kind of stabilise at the moment, women have to be earning either £100,000 a year in income, or have assets that are in addition to their home, their pension, and other kind of important areas, more than £250,000 available annually. So in other words, you're not taking any of your spare wealth. You're only taking your spare wealth, not your core wealth. That is one category, and they're called high net worth. That's women and men, by the way. And then there's another area called sophisticated, which many of you will actually you can all do it, because you have to be in financial services, or you've been working in advising companies already, or you've been a director of a company with £1 million turnover, which isn't actually huge, or you've already made investments. And then the final category, which is where a lot of women come in, because you may not fit any of those categories, you join, in the UK, you can join an angel group, and for 6 months you don't make investments, but you learn on the job, as Marla was describing, and at the end of that time you will be considered a sophisticated person to be an angel investor. Now, many countries, I will have to say, don't have such requirements. So this is why, obviously, thinking very carefully about people's capacity. But there are other issues like we always say don't invest more than 10% of your spare wealth, and that's already probably quite a lot for some people. And for many, that would, you'd be saying 2%, depending what they're earning. So, is what you're doing. What we're saying is don't feel you can't tell people to do this. Think how they can do it, which is, education, joining groups, learning about it, creating channels and making it work, because there are so many women out there and you won't have a regulatory environment that fits all this to give you that comfort blanket. So it's what you can do as people who are advising and supporting so many women to help them understand those opportunities. And we can all say in this room that those of us who invest, we get so much out of it. And so it's something that you can balance alongside people's sense of risk. So I need to stop there because we could talk forever on this one. And I'm sure many of us will be happy to help during that part, but also through Inez, we'll send some more information that can be circulated. Okay, so I'd like to thank my wonderful panel, Marla, Michelle, and DEEPALI, and thank you all for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you.